I want to go back to that first photo that we saw of the accident. The red arrow that we showed you earlier on the screen is pointing to a part of the bridge that's sagging, apparently in the order of a couple of feet even this morning over the river. At least 4 train cars reportedly on that bridge. Mike Blanchard joins us live from the scene. Mike, what can you tell us from your vantage point right now?
Well, I can tell you that we're going to a media briefing here with Calgary's Fire Department to get more details on this. Let's join in.
Good morning. So the situation we have right now currently is we have a train derailment on the bridge. At this point, we have separated cars on both ends of the train and removed the cars that could be removed, including an ethanol car. There currently remain 6 cars on the bridge. One is an empty crude oil tank, so that's empty. The other 5 are a flammable liquid, similar to a diesel fuel style of material. CP is working very closely with the fire department to mitigate this. We have a plan in place on what we want to do. The first step we're looking at is to secure the remaining rail cars that are there, to ensure that if the bridge does completely collapse, that the rail cars will not be floating down the river. So that is our first step, to secure them and make sure they stay where they are. Once that's done, there's a parallel bridge running next to this one. We're getting that inspected right now by bridge inspectors to make sure it's safe. And then we're going to, plan is to bring in some pumps and other rail cars and offload the product from the ones that are on the damaged bridge onto the good tankers. And then we will work with a company to try and remove those remaining cars with a crane unit.
Deputy Chief, how long do you have before maybe that bridge falls into the Bow River below, because it has been sinking? It
has been sinking. It has not moved in the last 45 minutes. The rail car that is on top of where the break is in the damaged section seems to be holding it intact. And as I said, we have engineers watching it right now. It has not moved in the last 45 minutes.
When you talk about securing the public,
right now the public is safe. We've set up a half-mile radius evacuation zone around here. There is no product leaking. There's nothing in the river. At this time, it's secure inside. So we have not evacuated any homes. It's all been commercial and industrial that's been evacuated at this point. And the isolation on the roads on Deerfoot is just a precaution to keep people away. Once we get the cars secured, we'll be reassessing the amount of evacuation zone we need. But until that point, it'll stay where they are now.
How are you securing those cars?
The cars are going to be secured. We have some large machinery, some D9 cats on either side, and we're going to be trying to string cable through all the rail cars, securing them to the D9 cats and some piers on either side to try and hold them in place.
I hear that the bridge fatigue was because of the recent flooding.
I can't speak to that. You'll have to talk to CP about that. What CP has informed us is that a qualified bridge inspector inspected the bridge on Saturday, and that Monday all the track on the bridge was inspected.
Earlier you had said 80,000 pounds is the weight of each of those cars. Is that the case?
I'd have to get the actual number, but roughly if they're full cars and the 5 remaining are full, they could be upwards of that range.
Ethanol in one of the cars. What's in the remaining cars?
They're just a flammable liquid, not otherwise specified. So it could be a kerosene type, could be a diesel fuel. There's a number of products that run under that dangerous goods numbering system. So the shipping documents we have, and we're just reviewing those now.
Obviously, you're working under very tight time constraints. Speak to that.
Well, the thing we want to do is secure the cars. The last thing we want is these cars floating down the river and causing problems downstream at other bridges or anything else. We also are working with some of the companies such as the Area P Oil Co-op, and we're trying to identify a position downstream where we can set up booms to secure across the river in case we do get any leakage, that we would be able to hold it and not allow it downstream.
Pumping process, how long would that take if you're successful in securing those cars and then moving other cars on the parallel bridge to extricate the material?
I don't want to give a time frame. It's a very dynamic situation, and anything could happen as we're moving into a step. If everything went right, within 4 to 5 hours, we should be able to offload everything. But again, that's going to be dictated by everything we do in the process.
What kind of additional strain does this have on your crews during this state of emergency?
Well, obviously, a lot of crews have been working hard, and we've got a lot of extra staff in. You got to remember that the EOC is running recovery operations, and we're supporting that. The fire department is looking after the 911 emergencies, and we have a full complement of staff, as we always do, and we have a lot of well-trained first responders that will be dealing with this.
What about other rail bridges in the city? Are those being inspected?
You'd have to talk to the rail companies on that. The city does not inspect rail bridges. They come under federal jurisdiction, so the rail companies are responsible for that. As I said, CP did say that this was inspected by a qualified inspector on Saturday.
So just to be clear, 6 cars and 5 have...
5 have flammable liquid, and 1 is empty that contained crude oil before it was empty.
Do you know how many cars are on this side of the bridge?
They have all been removed. So any cars, we're down to just the 6 on the bridge. Everything else has been disconnected and removed on either side.
Can you talk about the stringing? You talk about stringing the cars together. How do you do that?
Running cable through. We're looking at determining whether we need to use bucket trucks to put people in, to put them beside it and string it along, or if we can do it somehow remotely. I don't want to put anybody on the bridge unless I absolutely have to. Obviously, the safety of everybody is important here. So, thank you.
We'll coordinate through EOC in terms of our next time frame for media briefing. Deputy Uzeluk will be here throughout the day, but any next media briefing that we have will come out through EOC, and we'll work with them. Okay? Sorry, Bill?
So you've just heard a briefing from Calgary's fire department on this rail situation in Calgary. 6 cars are stranded on this bridge that has started collapsing this morning as rail traffic was crossing it. 5 of them contain some sort of flammable fuel, one with ethanol, others with different flammable materials. We don't know exactly what's in them. They're going to try and pump the fuel out of those cars before removing them and trying to secure the cars on the rail bridge in the event that the bridge does collapse. It's been dropping all morning, about a foot an hour, but as you heard during the briefing, the deputy chief saying that the bridge has not dropped in the past 45 minutes.
Yeah, Mike, describe the bridge from the photo that we're seeing. And it could be just the angle that we're looking at, but it doesn't look as though there's a lot of clearance above the water. Is that the case?
It's hard to say, actually, because we can't get a clear shot at the bridge from our angle at the police command post. But from my recollection of the bridge, I believe it's not as high as a freeway bridge that's going by. So there's probably a clearance of several feet at some point. But then, of course, you've got to remember that the river's a little higher than it normally would be right now, of course, with the flooding that Calgary's experienced in the past week, although river levels have been dropping. But again, you know, if that thing collapses, I mean, who knows how far down the bridge has to go before you would see it give away and perhaps you know, even further damage there.
Yeah, no, because if you don't have a lot of clearance and it's dropping a foot an hour, as you described earlier on, it sounded like the fire chief there was describing that the rail cars are kind of getting jammed and holding it together for the time being.
Yeah, that's exactly what it sounded like he was saying, that some of the cars that are up there maybe have sort of jammed together and maybe holding the bridge in place. So, I mean, that would be rather fortunate if that is the case. They did say that they were bringing in some cables as well to help secure those cars together in the event that the bridge does collapse. They wouldn't necessarily float downstream. There are other traffic bridges and rail bridges along that river as well, and you can imagine the potential, well, disaster if those rail cars were to float. That river's moving pretty quickly right now still. If they were to, you know, crash into bridges downstream, or just even the environmental damage should one of those cars rupture and I guess lose the load.
Oh, it sounded also like they're flammable, so even that is a risk.
Absolutely. I mean, who knows what could happen there. I mean, obviously with flammable materials, ethanol in one for sure. It sounds like diesel fuel is in some of the other cars, but there's no confirmation exactly what kind of fuel is in the other 4 cars. Out of the 5 cars, we know that ethanol is in one, and I mean, that's got to be some cause for concern in any event.
No question. And Mike, final question. The evacuation area that was described by the fire chief, how big is that area?
It's quite widespread, and it sounds like most of it is for as a precautionary measure. But you can imagine with flammable material, I mean, should the worst happen, you would want to have a pretty wide swath cleared away. But really, what's happening in Calgary this morning is the major north-south freeway is not far. It's almost adjacent, in fact, to the bridge itself. So that's been shut down entirely, and that's causing chaos with the morning commute here, as you can imagine. So, you know, in addition to some of the other bridges, or I should say some of the other roads in the area, it's a bit of a challenge getting around the southeast quadrant of Calgary this morning.
Yeah. Mike, be safe.
Thank you, we will.
Okay, keep us updated. Mike Blanchard in Calgary.